Blake, if you could create the Church Gear Conference, where and when would you host it?
We would host it at Cayman Islands, the whole church production community. They'd have a vacation, and Toby is paying for it. I'd have Toby pay for it.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a professional Trump impersonator and a man who can only be in the sun for 4 hours before burning. And I'm here with my co-host who could walk on the surface of the sun and survive, Toby Walters.
That was supposed to be a Trump impersonation?
I think I got nervous. I just got nervous, Toby. But you know what? It was a beautiful impersonation. Everyone loved it.
Wow. We are apolitical on this, but, you know, we like to do some comedy. So if you can also do a Biden impersonation just to even the scales. There you go.
I don't know that he has a distinct voice. That's why, love him or hate him, Trump's voice is fun to impersonate because it's fun to say.
Yeah. It's like whether you know, whichever way you fall. I know the like SNL and the Tonight Show, you know, writers are just looking for that comedy.
Dude, the current guy on SNL, he's so good at impersonating him. I bet he could like pass through airport security as him. It's insane.
That'd be wild. So, Blake, you would go to the Cayman Islands for the Church Gear Conference.
Toby would pay for it.
You know you'd have to get on a plane to do that.
Row your boat.
You're going to row your boat from Tennessee down to the coast in Florida?
I don't see any reason why my kayak can't get me there.
So you're going to drive from Tennessee all the way down to the coast of Florida, and then you're going to take a boat down to the Cayman Islands. That's your plan.
Toby, have I done, is that not even in the top 10 of the craziest things I've ever done?
Probably not. So we've done a lot of conferences already this year. There are 6 MXU events. I think there have been 2 so far, probably 3 so far by the time this comes out.
And y'all sent me to Columbus, Ohio out of the 6. I just got to say, I know where I rank at Church Gear.
Ohio was requesting you, Blake. And so there's still Dallas in August, Fort Lauderdale in September, and Seattle in October.
Yeah, I wanted to go to Seattle.
And of course, you know, we went to Philo. We talked about Philo a ton. We were also at Exponential Conference a few months back at
that was fun.
Down in Orlando at First Baptist down there. And then Brian, Drew, and I just went to the Worship and Tech Conference. This was a smaller conference, but it was hosted at Liberty University for essentially the SBC, the Southern Baptist Convention of Virginia. And so, you know, you go to MXU, you go to Philo, and there's a lot of big churches represented there. And then at the Worship and Tech conferences, you have like a lot of very small churches represented there. So I was doing a class on budgeting. And Blake, do you think I'd be better suited to talk to mega churches about budgeting or tiny churches?
As long as you did it in this voice, it wouldn't matter.
Blake, I figured you'd say definitely the smaller churches because I am cheap. And so, you know,
you're good at functioning with no money.
Coming up with creative
personality.
You're fired. So coming up with creative ways to, you know, extend a dollar is definitely my specialty, which is people often ask, like, why did you hire Blake? And I'm like, well, I had $12 and somebody had to do it.
You can get stuff that's fast, good, and cheap. Pick 2, and Toby always picks cheap. So
it's definitely fast and cheap or good and cheap.
Yeah, but for me, he just picked cheap and cheap.
And it was interesting to talk to, you know, churches. And I was giving some context because I thought it'd be helpful. Like, there are churches with $250,000 operating budgets just for like operations of their production, not including salaries, not including capital expenses. There are churches spending $1 million, like they're doing $1 million camera upgrades. They're doing $500,000 line array systems. These churches, they'd be lucky to get $50,000 like every 5 years to do a full system upgrade. It's just a very different context. So it was kind of fun to just, you know, give some of my experience and some creative options, especially with what we do at Church Gear. And it was a good time.
Do you find it ironic that they get $50K every 5 years, which is exactly what I make at Church Gear?
That's almost $1,000 a month, Blake. That's good money.
That's great money.
Yeah.
You know, another person that makes great money even falls out of his pockets if you walk behind him, the director of lunchtime nutrition and the broadcast manager at First Baptist Orlando, Bobby Falconnier. Bobby, how to do on your last name? Is it Falconnier?
You did very good. Very good. Very good. Say it in your Trump voice.
Introducing Bobby Falconnier, the best Falcon of all the Falcons, even better than the ones in Atlanta. They blew the Super Bowl. We all knew it. Tom Brady came from behind.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that better.
It's fun to do, man.
First of all, welcome to the show, Bobby. And second of all, I apologize in advance because obviously the nonsense is getting out of hand today, but this should be fun.
No, I appreciate it. Blake's an idiot, but it's cool.
Yep. That's what most of the church production community says. Blake's an idiot, but it's cool.
All right.
Consistency.
Yep.
Let's get to 5 Truths and a Lie, our weekly game where we introduce our guests based upon 5 truths and 1 lie that Toby and I try to guess. And Toby is
He's running behind this year. He's not doing good. He's losing bigly.
to me. So let's see
Am
if
I
I can
seriously behind?
all right, I will say there's like 4 episodes I forgot to mark, so I have to go re-look at them, but you'd have to win every single one.
Dang it. Okay.
Number 1, it's really hard not to do the accent every time now. Number 1, I have circumnavigated the entire Florida Keys on a boat. See,
The entire Florida Keys.
he rowed his boat to the Cayman Islands.
I doubt he rowed. Circumnavigated, I do not believe he's referring to rowing through that circumnavigation, but we'll find out. Okay.
Number 2, I have circumcisioned the entire Grand Canyon on a motorcycle.
I was so waiting for you to say circumcision.
What are you talking about circumcision? Circumnavigated. No, we're going to have to cut that. Number 3, I've circumnavigated the entire Hawaiian island of
Lanai.
on a kayak.
Gosh.
That's my
This guy circumnavigates a lot because only one of these could possibly be a lie. Okay,
Unless he's lying about a whole pack.
I know.
Number 4, I love to cook. You need some food after all those calories you burned. Number 5, I weirdly love looking at freshly mowed grass.
I feel that one.
I don't like looking at it, but it's fine. I love smelling it.
Yeah, I
It
get
smells
it.
like summer.
Okay.
That's weird.
Number 6, I have a fear of heights.
Ooh, do you have a leaning, Blake?
I'm gonna say I don't think you can be in production if you're heights. You have to fly too much.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to guess, but I'm going to say that.
Well, hold on. First off, my brother-in-law is a pilot, and
Ooh.
he's afraid of heights.
Wait a minute.
So
Like
his feet never leave the ground, so he's good with it.
Never leave the
But
floor.
he can't go up and on his roof. So
Interesting.
you're kidding me right now. Like he's not scared at
I'm
all to
dead.
fly, but he's afraid to be on his roof.
his feet never leave the ground. And so
That must be like a control thing, Toby. We've talked
Yeah.
about that before on this podcast. Like if you were flying the plane, maybe you're less scared.
Maybe.
I'm going to
Yeah,
say he
I
hasn't
get it.
circumnavigated the entire Hawaiian island on a kayak.
I thought you were talking fear of
Oh.
heights.
No, I said it can't be that because production people can't be afraid of heights.
He said, I have a fear of heights. So are you saying that's the lie? That
Oh, shoot.
Ooh.
I know.
I'm going to stick with the kayak though.
All right. I'm going to actually say that
Okay.
he did not circumnavigate the Grand Canyon on a motorcycle because I definitely know he's a boat lover. So, all right, Bobby, what's the lie?
I have never been Hawaii.
Dang it.
I'm going to crush
But
you
the
this year, Toby.
the caveat is I only have a fear of heights in my dreams. I have the same dream every year where I'm sitting at my old church and the balcony railings fall off and the whole thing just starts crumbling. And that's my only fear of heights, but only in my dreams. It's the weirdest thing.
And you had that,
So I need,
like that is a recurring dream for you?
yeah, it's usually after I do like a whole night of cocaine or something. But otherwise, I can't put my finger on it, but it's like once or twice a year I have this dream and I'm like, I don't like heights. I don't know.
I used to
It's
have
only in my dreams.
recurring dreams about like showing up to lead worship and the set wasn't ready, the instruments weren't set up. So that'd be an interesting, ask of the church production community. What are your reoccurring nightmares around production?
Mm.
Yeah.
Right?
Mine would be when I run out of cocaine.
Okay. So you're
I
a
get it.
boat and a motorcycle guy?
Yeah, I go to the Keys 2-3 times a year. So I've been to everywhere in the Keys, and I used to have a Harley, and I've been on pretty much from here to Tennessee and every state in between. And I rented a Harley over in Nevada and did the whole Grand Canyon a couple years ago. And long ride, but it was a blast.
Blake, based on those two facts, I feel like if we ever do a Men of Church Production calendar, like Bobby could definitely be like Mr. June. Mr. July.
Yeah.
Like, what month do you want to be the featured
Well, my
model
birthday's June, so I got to do June so I can have my bikini body going.
for? Perfect.
So Yeah, I think June would be it. I got some pictures ready to go. I can send them over to you.
Do you think these would sell? Because I now really want to do this. Like the men of production and everyone's competing every year to be in the
It'd
calendar.
be amazing. I mean, if anybody's going to do it, it'd be us because we're just that stupid. Okay, so I have a philosophical question. If you are afraid of heights, when you are in a boat in the ocean, are you high up? I mean, the ground technically could be, hundreds of meters below you.
Never thought of it like that.
Yeah, now you're gonna.
But no. Yeah. I mean, I went to the Bahamas last year and I was in like 4,000 feet of water.
Yeah.
And I never thought of it because it all looks the same. So I don't know. I never thought of it like that.
And Blake is like a human buoy, so he just floats.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of well, hang on. Here's the thing. There's scary stuff underwater. I follow an Instagram page that only shows scary stuff underwater, so I don't like to float unless there's something under me like a kayak or another body.
Another body, a sacrificial human underneath you.
Where do you think I dump all the bodies, Toby? It's in the water.
Oh, Bobby, let's get back onto track because this nonsense has been it's been fun. I will admit it. Talk to us,
something.
And they haven't even heard the stuff we cut out.
Talk to us a bit about your current role, the unique context, like your unique context at First Orlando, and what your team does, kind of on a week in and week out basis.
Yeah, so I'm the broadcast manager at First Baptist Orlando. So basically, my main role is to make sure that we're ready to go in the worship center for all things video. So I don't do any of the post stuff. I just do all the live stuff, make sure all the cameras are working, the volunteers are there, LED screens working, and that we can get to the streaming box. And then there's other people that actually handle all the streaming stuff. I've been there, I think full time. It's been about 16 years now. With internship, it's been about 18 years, 19 years. So it's been a long time, but it's been a blast. And we have great group of guys that I work with and girls and volunteers, really smart, talented people. So it's really been a lot of fun.
How big is your team when you're talking about all the volunteers, like ballpark?
My specific team, just for camera volunteers, on the video side of stuff, it's about 30. So it's not super huge.
Okay.
Not super huge, he says. A bigger team just for cameras than most churches have overall.
So, obviously a difficult thing in production is just getting the people you need. I'm sure that's a pain point for a lot of our listeners. You're at one of the biggest churches in America. And, we might just assume like, oh, well, in your context, it's easy. Like you got thousands and thousands of people every week to pick and choose from and get volunteers. But, is that true? Like, what are some of your best practices to find volunteers at First Orlando for your team?
Yeah, I think we struggle the same way anybody else struggles. We do have more volunteers, but we also have more positions that have to get filled. We run 3 services every week, 5 manned cameras plus graphics, engineering, directing, prompter. There's a bunch of different stuff that we have to fill. So to get volunteers, it's not really been the easiest thing. Some people walk through the doors and they're like, "Hey, I want to do this," and then sometimes we just go without for a little while. But I mean, most of the time we have a really strong group of people that'll. Some people like to work like one service, or they'll work 3 services. And so when someone walks through the door, I'll kind of talk to them and we'll kind of just figure out what they want to do. And I kind of size them up when I'm talking to them. You can learn a lot by talking to someone for 5 minutes and kind of see what their strengths are. And then we just kind of let them hit the road and we start doing it.
So this is timely for me because I asked our production director at Church of the City, her name is Sarah. I said, okay, my son is 12. We're trying to find ways in which to get him involved. And I said, I think the film team, the production crew, he might be interested in. And we're starting to run 3 services on a Sunday morning. I said, does he have to volunteer at all 3? And she's like, that's kind of how we do it. Like, if you're going to volunteer for a Sunday, then you're there all 3 services. She said, we do make exceptions. Like, that's an interesting philosophy. How do you guys handle that? Do your volunteers commit to all that on one Sunday, or can they pop in and pop out?
And do they sign in ink or blood?
It's always blood. Yeah. It's just easier. So we tried the mandate of doing 3 services. If you work one, you work them all. But that just doesn't work for people, especially at our church. We're kind of a legacy church, so we've used to only had 2 services. We've just recently added the 3rd service about 8 years ago. And a lot of my volunteers, they go back 20, 30 years. I mean, I have some real legacy volunteers that have just been strong. And I've found that some people, when they start doing 3 services, we get there at 7 a.m. and you really don't get done till almost 1 o'clock. That's almost another job. And I don't want church to be a job. I want people to be there, want to be there, have fun, not get burnt out. And I also want them to experience church. If you're there for all 3 services, you're obviously not in the service. You're not going to a life group. You're not volunteering anywhere else. And so there are some people that love doing all 3. Some people like doing all 3 once a week. Or once a month, should I say? And there's some people that want to do just one service once a month so they can still participate in the whole church life. And I just found it easier that the culture is just better when people can serve as much or as little as they want. As someone that does the schedule, I would love it if I just had to do one schedule, and here you're camera 1 for all 3. But it just doesn't really work out like that. And I can't say I blame them. Church is not always fun. Sometimes it gets stressful. If it's a high energy service or if there's a lot of variables or things changing, and sometimes it can be a lot. And some people just they just want to just be there and experience church. And so I encourage that. And that's we kind of go that route more than anything.
And my wife said something to me today, and it was from a friend of hers, and I thought it was so profound. Her friend said, I really feel like God is telling me right now to fall in love with reality. And, just like you're saying, it'd be real nice if people would commit to all 3 services. But reality is that people's, commitment levels and schedules are all over the place. And so, you're having to move things around. I almost feel like you're a manager at a restaurant trying to schedule servers. And do you have like a grid of schedules, or is this, planning center is this miraculous thing that helps you organize all that?
So my boss makes fun of me because I'm kind of archaic in how I schedule. So the middle of the month, usually by the 15th, I'll send out an availability, and it'll have every single week, every single service. And people can say, I want to work this service this week, and they can select all the boxes or none of the boxes. And then that gets put on an Excel spreadsheet so you can see the whole entire month. And it beats Planning Center because you can see it all at one glance. As you can see all the cameras, all the services, and it's just easier. So then on Thursday, I will then schedule people for that following weekend. But it's really just a reminder, hey, you were scheduled. And I do that in Planning Center. But yeah, the schedule, and I've even asked people, every couple of months, hey, how's the scheduling working? Does it work? And people, they seem to like it. They like the flexibility. They can kind of come and go and do as much as they want.
I feel like it's amazing how many software programs can often just be beat with a spreadsheet.
Or an
right?
abacus,
Abacus.
Abacus, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about, you get a new volunteer that says, oh, I'm interested. Let's call him Blake. And let's say
a new dummy has arrived.
Let's say this dummy Balake has 0 experience,
but lots of enthusiasm.
Yep. And so what's your process? How do you go about figuring out where that person would fit best?
So when someone walks through the doors, sometimes they have experience. I have some camera ops that have been doing stuff at Disney for 20 years, and they just know what they're doing. And I have some people that were in a service, and they're like, oh, that looked like cool. I don't even know what that is. That's a camera. That's what that's called. And so I'll talk to them. And let's say they want to go on camera. That's usually where we start people. I have found, and much to the dismay of my directors, I have found the best way to get people going is just to get them going. And so they'll come through the doors. I'll talk to them, and I'll then have them sit with the directors for a week or two so they can hear what they're saying and kind of see the camera shots and stuff. But then I just get them on camera, and I get them on camera during a service. And so I'm kind of lucky to where we have multiple cameras, and certain parts of the service, certain cameras are more critical than others, which means I have some cameras that I can kind of not sacrifice, but just have some more fun with and train. And so I can put a new person on the camera, and I can guide them to a shot. Sometimes I don't ever take the shot. But if it's a nice working shot, I'll, say, hey, great shot. Yeah, let's do that. Ready one. I'll take them. And I have found that kind of gets them, it gets them in the mix. It gets them feeling like they're doing something and they're not just sitting there. B, it's really hard to get someone to come back on a Wednesday night or a Sunday night to do more training. I have a life outside the church. I don't want to be here more than I have to. I love my job, but to spend an extra 3 hours every week with other people, sometimes it just doesn't work for people's calendars. And so, if they come in on a service and they just get doing, then they learn faster. And I feel like once people feel like they're participating, they learn faster, they learn quicker, and they get more excited about coming about next week. And again, my camera directors, they would prefer that some of my cameras, they sit in like a 6 weeks course and they learn everything and the terminology and how to do everything, but I think just have at it. Let's just have fun. I'll never put anybody in a position where they'll fail. They're never on a main camera, where the service would be impacted. They're just on a camera where they can have fun and learn and just be a part of the mix real quick.
I love this concept because, I mean, if anybody knows that churches have extra cameras laying around, it's Church Gear. And so maybe keeping a couple of those as, well, in honor of Balake, we'll call them dummy cams. But, they can be hooked up to your switcher. They can be another view, but you don't have to use them. And so volunteers can have at it, and they're learning on the fly. They're actually doing it, which we know is the best way to actually get them excited about it. And then, hey, if you end up with a good shot, then you didn't even try to get it. Like, Blake, you could actually get into this.
Put me in, coach. I'm going to take a shot.
Let's do it.
And do you have any minimum age to have somebody serve without their parents?
No. I mean, obviously it's going to depend on the maturity of the person, but we've had some really young kids, and I have found sometimes that the younger kids are sometimes quicker learners, just because of technology. My last church, we had a PTZ camera, and they're using the joysticks and all that stuff, and the younger kids picked it up faster and were better at it than some of the older volunteers, just because they had never done it before. So I've had volunteers. Probably 10 or 12. And I think I have some that are in their late 70s right now. So we run the whole gamut.
Blake, you and I could both serve at Bobby's church.
Because I'm 10 and you're 70.
Yep. Okay, Bobby. So nobody's going to give you the title of pastor in your title, which we can, debate on a whole other episode. But how do you go about pastoring your people and then teaching them to pastor those below them and just lead others?
I think, and you're right, if you were to give me the title of pastor, my duties wouldn't change. I still have people reaching out for prayer and direction and guidance and what do I do? And sometimes I feel like I can't answer, and other times I can just pray for them. But I think the biggest thing I've learned over these last years is people just want to be loved. They want to be loved, encouraged, and just feel like they belong. And so I do my best when on Sundays. We have a bunch of couches in the back of our control room, and we just kind of sit and we chat as a family. I try to address every email I send out. Hey, family. Hey, team. Inclusive words, and just to make people feel like they belong. And, I try to give them branded polos. The other dumb thing that smaller churches might be able to pick up, we could pay people. We've talked about paying people because then I could demand the same people every single week. I have found that giving someone a polo or a T-shirt or a branded mug goes way farther than a paycheck, because they feel like they own it and this is them now. And they come in and they wear that shirt with pride, kind of like that beautiful church gear. And that's all Blake gets paid. It's just in T-shirts.
Yep.
Are you kidding me? I had to pay for this shirt.
Yeah. Oh,
this is
I
comfort
need to
colors.
figure that one out. Yeah. But I think if you have an inviting environment, to use the same word twice, that people come in, I know their name, they walk in, I say, hey, so-and-so, how was your week? And I always try to ask them about something, how's your job going? Or, how's your, I got one guy that's he's into cars and he's got a nice little Mustang. And, so we joke about stuff, and I'm not a car guy at all. So it's really funny to hear me talk about stuff like that. But just to feel like, I think some people look at this as their life group. And so I like that as well. I encourage people to go to their own life groups, because you get more of the Bible, but I think we get more fellowship than maybe some other life groups do, because we're kind of there for the common goal, to reach other people. And I think the biggest paycheck that anybody gets is, we'll be directing a service and they'll be like, this is so-and-so getting baptized. She first heard about us from streaming. Or, we had somebody that, I forget the story, how it went, but she was praying about a church. She Googled the church. She watched us that week. She came in the next week and got baptized. That's a paycheck for my volunteers.
Yeah.
And they love that more than anything else I can do for them. And so when we try to encourage that and highlight that stuff, I think that goes really, really far.
Blake, do you think anybody's listening to this podcast and then they're going to go get baptized next week because of what they heard?
Yes, because they need to purify themselves after the horrendousness they've heard from us.
Yes.
I saw someone on Instagram the other day, and it was like, I start all of my my business meetings or with my team by saying, tell me where you found your blueberries this week. And it was linking back to like, so many meetings start just only addressing problems and you're only ever trying to solve a problem. But in the old hunter-gatherer days, if you found blueberries, everyone wanted to know where you found them. So you could go get them. And it was he was basically just saying, like, as you're saying, Bobby, bring the successes, show the successes over and over and over again, because that's what's going to like keep people energized and coming back, and also teach them how to go get some more of them.
My blueberries are in my smoothie.
That makes sense. I see them in your teeth.
Yep.
Well, I wish you all could see this filter because it looks like you just ate blueberries because your lips are purple.
We should tell everybody I put on a bunch of filters. I've got a beard. I've got purple lips. My eyebrows look like Chewbacca's throw up because I just wanted to be funny in the marketing meeting and I can't figure out how to get it off.
Yeah. That's the best part. You can't figure out how to undo it.
Yeah.
Right. But going back to Sundays, our production meetings with my camera ops, we try to have one before every service. If you were to take and divide it up into 100%, 2% of it is actually talking about the service. The rest of it is talking about, hey, how you doing? Let's pray. Let's figure this out. And it's more personal. Our people, I only tell them what's different. Hey, there's a clown riding a bike in the back of the worship center. I need the handheld to go grab that. They don't need to know we're singing this song and this lyric. We're doing a song. We're doing this. This is the pastor. There's a TV or not. That's really all they care about. Let's get to what's more important and let's get to you. And that works for us.
Use the example, a clown riding a bicycle in the back of the auditorium. Is that like a actual thing?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. We've
that was
done
the
some
strangest
weird stuff.
example I've ever heard.
Yeah. You got to be in my head sometimes. We've had reindeer walk around. We've had actual donkeys walk around. We've had Santa Clauses. I don't know if we've actually had a clown.
Was the reindeer on accident? Like it wandered in?
No, it was part of our Christmas show, and a bunch of people dressed up like reindeers, and it was like the dancing thing. It's actually where I met my wife. She was one of the reindeer, so it worked out.
Hey-o. Well done.
Let's move on. This could be inappropriate.
It's his wife. It's very appropriate. All right, Bobby. So one of the dangers in raising up these volunteers and giving them meaningful work is that they'll get so good at it that they leave you. And especially down in Orlando, there's a lot of industry out there. So, how do you handle those transitions of people that you've raised up and they've learned under you, and now they're finding full-time careers out in the production industry?
I love it. I think that's a reward for me, that they can come in and we can equip them with a skill that'll feed them. Our lighting guy, Jeff, actually is probably one of the best at that. He's had multiple people come under his wing from our private school or other local elementary schools or whatnot, grow up. He'll teach them how to do lighting and all that stuff. And one particular guy, he was working on the Super Bowl this year. He did some stuff for some big tours last year, and he did all the programming for some ice skating show for Disney. And he's done some really big stuff. And there's nothing cooler than that. Like, he learned from us. And I've had some other volunteers. I wouldn't say anybody's left us because they've grown up and on. But we've had some other people that have moved, and then they were able to go to a different church and they can teach the church what they've learned from us. Not that we do it right, but just different ways to do it. Like, hey, I did this over there, and it seemed to work for us. And, they might pick up on a few stuff.
That's great. I know in, part of your work history that you had a what do you call it? A sabbatical in working for an LED manufacturer. And then it sounds like, maybe your heart was designed more for ministry. Talk to us about kind of some of the pros and cons, because I know it can be tempting for guys in production roles at churches to think maybe the grass is greener, but we know how you feel about that freshly cut grass. So talk to us about the pros and cons of manufacturer or industry versus church.
Yeah, I think they each have their pros and cons. It was a time for me where it was before I got married, and looking back, I can definitely see why God had me walk down that whole road, but I was just burnt out. I've been doing church tech since I was like 15, and this is basically what I've done my whole life. I did a little bit at some theme parks, just to make some money when I was interning here, but I just been doing it so long, and I think I just got burnt out. And so I was just kind of struggling, and I got a call one day. They say, "Hey, would you be interested to help us do something?" And then the owner called me and said, "Hey, we're actually kind of interested in hiring you. Would you be interested in that?" And I was like, "Sure, let's do it." And so I did it for 6 months, and they were great people, and I had a lot of fun. And my job was more working with churches, so I still stayed in the church world. But for some reason, even as routine as Sunday morning gets, it was really weird to not be a part of Sunday morning, because again, that's all I know. I grew up in a church, playing choir, playing in the orchestra, working tech, or playing drums in the band or whatever. It's all I know. So when I was going to this other company, most of the time we had to be there on the site Monday morning to install whatever we were doing. And so I was traveling on Sunday. I wasn't going to church, and I felt like something was missing. And so I was with these churches, and I would build their LED screens, and then I would leave, and I didn't get to use the product for what it was intended for. It was fun to design it and to help the church have a tool that can help spread their message, and get their word out. But it was just empty for me. And so I found it just wasn't the right role, and so I quit. And I had no plan to actually go back to my church, but they hadn't filled my role yet. And so they just say, "Hey, you want to come back?" And I was like, "Sure." And so we'll call it a quick sabbatical. It was only like 6 months or so, but I think it kind of gave me a time to rest and kind of just figure out where my heart was. And I love churches. I get so excited when other churches come here and they want to see my stuff, and I get to talk to them and figure out what they're doing and learn from them. And Sunday morning, again, as boring as it can get sometimes, that is why we do what we do. And there's so many life-changing stuff that happens on a Sunday that just doesn't happen on Monday.
Yeah, I totally resonate. I don't know how to not be in church. I mean, obviously we all go on vacation and we might get sick, but yeah, I've been in church since the moment I was born, basically every single Sunday.
Your mom delivered you at church?
Pretty much. I just, was just right there in a pew, born and in the pew. And so, I totally get that. And obviously we've talked to a lot of people just about the draw of leaving the church, and they constantly come back to the word calling, and you have a calling to be there. And if you do, the rest will figure itself out. So, we're glad you're still kicking on Sunday mornings.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely more money to be made out there doing anything else except church world. But if you're empty inside, it doesn't matter how much money's in the bank.
Yeah.
The 2 lowest paying jobs in the world, working at church or church gear.
No, everybody else makes great money here, Blake. It's just you.
Oh, wait a minute. All right.
Yeah.
Workers union. Okay, Bobby, question for you though, man. Since you got to leave and come back, did it give you some valuable perspective that and also feel free to say no, but on your bad days, where it's like, man, this sucks. Those happen to everybody. Are you ever like, man, I'm not really bothered by them as much as I used to, because I know that the grass isn't always greener?
I think it was more figuring out what you're called to do and where you're supposed to be. And I look at that now, I think that's been probably 8 years now, 8 or 9 years since I left. And, the times where I get tired and bored and just ready to do something different, I just kind of remember the feeling, how it was when I left. And I think sometimes you gotta remember why you do what you do. And it's the little rewards of hearing, someone that get baptized or someone that came to the church because of the TV ministry. Or we have a new volunteer that he just started coming with us. And literally, as I was writing you guys an email last week, he posted something. I love First Orlando, and I love that being a part of the ministry, and that was kind of rewarding for me. And I think you just need to know where you're supposed to be, and when you're there, it'll just click.
Okay, so having been at First Orlando for almost 16 years now, I assume there's been a time where everything went wrong, or maybe everything almost went wrong, but you or somebody else saved the day. Do you have a good disaster story for us?
Oh gosh, there's so many of them. 2 years ago, our KVM actually burnt. We came in and the control room smelled like fire. So we lost our KVM system. That was during Exponential Conference. We've had times where our switcher, before we upgraded a couple years ago, was dying. We had another time where our brain to our router actually died. And so I couldn't change anything. I couldn't route anything. Luckily, it was somewhat good, but patch base saved our life on that one. I mean, there's a bunch of small stuff, but I think we've been here so long, and I know this system so well, and we have such a good team that anytime there's anything major that has happened, again, we've had our whole lighting system burn. We've lost our whole audio system because somebody cut the fiber. Our team it's like a family. We just get together and we figure it out. Most of the time, we don't even have to tell the congregation that anything happened. I have so many small stories that I could be here all day, but most of them weren't fun. There was one time I was working on a gig outside of church, but we were doing this basketball thing and the switcher died. And we actually had to call in another switcher, and we faded into the national anthem. That's how close we caught it. We were on ESPN3, so this was live, and we literally faded into the national anthem. So that was pretty close. That wasn't the most fun day I've had. So
I didn't know there was ESPN3. How many are
they
there?
do a lot of. Well, there's at least 3.
Yeah.
Well, isn't there like ESPN, the Ocho or something?
Well, that's from
one?
Dodgeball.
I think it's the Spanish one. Yeah.
ESPN 8,
well,
the Ocho.
Ocho. I think ESPN3 does a lot of collegiate streaming, like basketball games and stuff like that.
Okay.
And there was no talent on it, which is why I was on that gig. So I haven't made it quite too big yet.
Speaking of no talent, Blake, you want to take this last one here?
If we were trying to infuse some talent into people, we'd give them a tech takeaway. That's how we wrap all of our episodes. So what would be your tech takeaway, Bobby Falconnier, for your episode?
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I tell a lot of church of this. It's not always cheaper to spend less. And I say that to say there are more expensive ways to do stuff and there are cheaper ways to do stuff. But sometimes there's a middle ground that is the correct way to do it. So not knocking any brands or anything, but there could be, a lesser camera that say it's a $2,000 camera. But by the time you buy everything to actually make it work cleanly inside your auditorium, whether it be comm, power, tally, anything like that, you may end up better serving and be a better steward of your money to spend a little bit more and buying the better camera that does all of it in one that'll last 10 years versus 3 years. And so we try to take that approach. There's some things that are mission critical that it's just got to be what it's got to be. And there's some smaller stuff that, if it dies, it's not a big deal. And I think you have to weigh that. But I've told a lot of churches that, and it's not always cheaper to spend less. And I think once people think about that, it makes sense to them.
You hear that, Toby? It's not always easy to cheap out.
It occasionally works out for you, but it certainly did not work out in this case. I'm still dealing. You're coming up on 4 years soon here at Church Gear.
Oh, fire!
I guess
if you count your original part-time contract work,
that would have been May. Yeah.
Oh gosh,
my goodness.
What is
so
my
Blake,
life?
Do you just have no other talents to offer? Is that why you're stuck here?
I am a very I'm like a very cushiony but regenerative punching bag, and man, you can make a freaking career out of it.
Yeah, I've seen. I've noticed.
Bobby, if we were going to point people to anything to kind of get the heat off of me right now, what would we point them to? What do you want to plug? Where do you want to send people?
Let's go to the Florida Keys. Yeah, I don't know. Just there's a lot of good resources out there. I think Church Gear does a lot of good stuff at helping people get some good quality gear at some cheaper prices. There's a lot of good integrators out there that'll help you save money, but also help you do it right. So
awesome. And anything for you personally? Do you want our listeners to find you on Instagram or Facebook or reach out or watch your streams of First Orlando?
It's the website's firstorlando.com. We stream everything, whether we want to or not. I'm on Facebook. You can look me up on Facebook. I'm on the Church Sound Media Tech Facebook page that sometimes is really positive and helpful. Sometimes is not as helpful, but I think a lot of people are well-intentioned. We're on YouTube. I don't really have any other life. That's cool. I couldn't say follow me on the Instagram or TikTok because I'm not cool like that. My jeans are tight on purpose. They're only tight because I gain weight. Facebook would be the only cool place.
Bobby, that was pretty funny. I wish people could have heard the zingers you had earlier in the episode that we had to cut out. That'll be on Church Gear After Dark. That was funny. Well, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, man, this was fun. I'm glad I could see your face with the purple lipstick and the big eyebrows.
I have got to get that taken off.
Are you recording this? Because I need to take a picture of this. If you're not,
I'm not recording it.
Probably the best thing. There we go. Yeah, smile. Yeah, this is great. Okay. Yeah, I'll text you guys that.
Beautiful.
Purple's not your shade, by the way. It doesn't do much for you.
What a disaster. All right, well, thanks for joining us, and I'm gonna go get someone in the tech lab to help me get this setting off.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, listeners. We're introducing a segment called Church Tech Confessionals. This is a time for any church tech to anonymously confess the worst thing they've ever done in church production. Here's one now.
So, I had a friend that was visiting me out of town from church. I was mixing front of house. He said that I needed to try these new caffeine pouches. They were gonna give me a cool boost, just regular caffeine thing. I had only had one coffee. I normally have two. But so I put it in, service is going great. Like, man, this caffeine pouch is I'm feeling awesome from this thing. He comes up to me after service. He's like, that was actually a nicotine pouch that I gave you during the service. And I had 2 or 3 people come up to me after the service and say that was the best mix I've heard in a long time. So the next weekend I tried the same thing. And then the next weekend I did the same thing. And then the next weekend I did the same thing. So needless to say, I'm putting nicotine pouches on the church card.
Hey, if you have your own 3 to 5 minute Church Tech Confessional, record it and send it to podcast@churchgear.com. And don't worry, we'll apply a voice changer and you'll be 100% anonymous. Your pastor will never know.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
Blake, I think our listeners wonder about the disaster story. Oh, they do that. That's fun. Like, that's kind of a good little segment. But really, it's just based on the fact that this whole show is a disaster all the time. Like, that's kind of our bit.
Well, yeah, it's got the 2 of us on it. You got 2 the blind leading the blind over here.
And like, you're such an idiot that you can't figure out how to remove the effects on your face on Zoom. Like, that's how low tech we are.
Yes. And if we don't get these podcast numbers up, we're going to have to probably cancel the podcast. And then I don't have any other skills, so it's not like I can work anywhere else.
It's not like we can make it a bigger disaster, can we?
If you shared it with someone, whether you texted it or put it on Instagram, that could help make it a bigger disaster.
And maybe Blake will still be here in 5 years.
With purple lipstick.